Let's go. 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 Big story, of course, just now breaking. Just gonna refresh my vocal cords after doing the video that we just dropped less than an hour. Not be named has decided to move along with his life officially, which the funny thing is that it's not official. And it's funny because today was supposed to be a big day of positivity, and this is a positive story. Thank goodness we can all move on. As we say hi to Max, we say hi to Rain, we say hi to Cheryl, we say hi to Johnny, we say hi to Andrew, we say hi to Big Al. Thanks for getting in here early. But as much as I want to talk about Jacoby Mathews being on campus today, leading the charge for this 2022 class, as much as I want to talk about Quincy Wiggins and Jamon Tapp and a few other big-time 2022 targets that are out there, I wanted to bring this up about this guy, okay? Have you ever noticed whenever this guy decided to make a big announcement, it always happened to be on a day in which it was supposed to be someone else, right? So if I am not mistaken, this guy decided to initially announce on Twitter that he was entering the transfer portal, and I believe he made the announcement on his Twitter account. It had already been known that he was going to enter the transfer portal, but he just had to time the day that he was going to announce that he was entering the transfer portal, the day that I believe recruits were signing for the early signing period. So this guy took the news cycle away from all these kids who, did the right thing. And they consistently decided to dominate the news cycle. On, ironically, Sunday nights was when the announcement was made that he was going to commit to Florida. Then on Sunday night, it was announced that he announced that he decommitted from Florida. And out of all days, to decide when he was going to announce that he was going to Georgia, he steals the thunder from every single 2022 recruit that was dominating the news cycle. Have you noticed that? The timing of every announcement that he made just happened to be when someone else was supposed to be getting the shine. And that is what bothers me more than anything. Because, it's kind of like that Aaron Rodgers story that broke the night or the day of the NFL draft. It was an Aaron Rodgers and a Tim Tebow story. When the night of the draft should have been about Penei Sewell and Jamar Chase, Trevor Lawrence. It should have been about those guys. But I hate it when the news cycle gets hijacked on a day that we universally praise someone that is doing the right thing. And this guy decided to do this a lot. I don't know what the deal is. Obviously, he's still young. Obviously, he still has time to atone for whatever. But thank goodness, me guys such as him are no longer a part of the program. Now, I will say this. When he is not able to play for Georgia, and when the announcement is made here in a couple of weeks that he will not actually sign with Georgia, because look, it very well could happen. I better not hear LSU's name in the discussion again for this guy. I better not. Okay? So, look, I made a lot of irresponsible decisions during my time at LSU. I also struggled academically. And those are deeply personal things. And as I've done from the get-go, I've not taken any deep personal shots at this guy. But the thing is, he had the audacity after tweeting out the word eat yesterday to say that he retweeted a tweet from J.C. Horn, the rookie corner for the Carolina Panthers, that people were always out to try and sully his name or whatever. No. When you do indefensible things and when it's always got to be about you, guess what? You're going to get called out for your behavior. So we'll see. Now, this is the thing. Kane thinks I sound like Salty Dog. I'm not Salty Dog. I've always said from the get-go, I wish the best for anyone. If you're not mentally wanting to be at LSU, best of luck. But the point is, it just always struck me as crazy that his announcements always just happen to be on days when the recruiting cycle wasn't even supposed to be about him. I just found that it just hit me right before the live stream began. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, I wish he would have stuck with LSU. I wish things would have worked out. And I obviously don't think that you should send any messages to him or his family on Twitter or whatever. I think that's just downright petty. But my point is the fact that this was handled the way it was handled is pretty wild. I was calling you dog. But yeah, and Kane, I could get a little salty about things sometimes. But as always, this live stream is not just going to be about one person or one thing. It is about whatever topic you want to get to. So obviously with your Venmos, Cash Apps, and Super Chats, we immediately go to your topic. Also, of course, if you do get you a PHL shirt on our PHL T-shirt link, well, obviously that also counts as a Super Chat as well. So feel free to fire away at any time. I do want to talk some recruiting because this was a big recruiting day. So we'll see what happens. We say hi to Victor. We say hi to Fillmore. We say hi to Jared. We say hi to Reed. Obviously, Kane just dropped in. Let's see. Cliff just got his PHL shirt. Not only did he get it, he tweeted out about it. I absolutely love it. And here's the thing. If I was salty, I would be just screaming at the top of my lungs right now. I'm at ease. I'm feeling great. I just got back from vacation. Obviously, we still did live streams there, but I'm fine. I'm totally fine with this. No, Johnny, I wasn't able to hear the Coach O interview today because I was you know what's funny? Today's video was supposed to be on the recruits that visited LSU today. And I'm starting to think that the most valuable recruit for the class of 2022 is actually a 3-star. And I know that sounds weird, but out of all the uncommitted guys, I think there's one player who is really flying under the radar that I think LSU needs more than anyone else. So we'll get to him in just a second, or obviously if you super chat, we'll go straight to that. But, obviously the big news today was Jacoby Mathews was on campus, and he is a 5-star safety. I think he's really good. I do. And, I look at just what he did to Ponchatoula last season as a high school player. And sometimes we talk about recruits just as players or just as prospects, but we don't actually talk about what they can do to your team. And Jacoby Mathews, as a first-year starting quarterback, turned a 6-5 Ponchatoula team into a 7-2 Ponchatoula team with a pandemic offseason. He really is special in a lot of different ways. So, I'm really happy he was on campus. I'm really happy that Quincy Wiggins was on campus. And I've seen the photos of Quincy Wiggins and Jamon Tapp working out. And then, of course, Kendrick Law was visiting Florida State today. Still wishing obviously, you still feel comfortable for LSU there. Out of Shreveport, Louisiana, North Louisiana, stand up. Let's go. And I think Kendrick Law is a really talented guy. You got to figure out what position you actually want to play him. But yeah, I'm feeling great. Today was an overall positive day for LSU. So we'll see what happens. Let's see. The lineman out of Catholic High, Emery Jones, absolutely. Let's see. I know, Jawan. It is interesting that you bring that up, because it does feel good as an LSU fan that you don't have all of this pressure that Georgia's going to have on their shoulders heading into next season. They have their quarterback. They have a lot of experience returning. They have a good defense coming back, even though they did lose 2 really good players on their defense in the first 2 rounds of the draft. This is Georgia's year. This is Georgia's year. But yeah, I don't want to get into Salty Dog is vodka and lime juice. But let's see. But no, Johnny, I wasn't able to hear the Coach O interview this morning. I did see a few tweets about it. I know he talked a little bit about Pig Cage. I know you're really interested in him, Johnny. I think what's fascinating is Ed Orgeron knows that nickel position is wide open. And I do think he's interested in looking at Pig Cage as potentially, being that nickel corner. So we'll see. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Yeah, Victor, it is a little unfortunate once again that Ed Orgeron went on the air this morning before this guy announcement. And look, they didn't get a chance to ask him about it, so we're gonna have to wait till next Tuesday or the next media session. But yeah, I wish, and I hope Ed Orgeron learns from this. Make sure you get guys on board that want to be there. And obviously, as I mentioned in the video we just released, you do need guys to, of course, and this is kind of complicated. You do need to allow guys to grow. They're going to have mistakes or mishaps. The problem was you did everything right outside of just cutting ties after he committed to Florida. Once he committed to Florida, it should have just been over. And there could be some damage done from trying to get him back and then this happening. And look, sometimes that's the risk you run with out-of-state 5-stars. And you look, LSU, their last 8 or 9 5-stars from out of state, the only ones that have worked have been out-of-state 5-star defensive backs. All the out-of-state 5-star other position players, who is it? AG2, obviously Marcel Brooks, Maya Tuema, Clifton Garrett, and a few others. They just didn't work out. It's always been interesting. We'll see. But yeah, I don't want you guys getting into a fight about what happened with the guy that is no longer here. But I don't mind some AG2 discourse. Let's see. Yeah, that's true, Victor. I agree with that. Let's see here. I do want to get into this topic here about out-of-state recruiting. Fillmore Starkey, I love that name. By the way, I didn't link this earlier. That, of course, is the t-shirt link right there. So the first thing I want to say about out-of-state recruiting is that there is a risk you run whenever you get a kid from out of state. And what I think is going to happen is the pattern that we've seen consistently, even with a lot of out-of-state 5-stars that commit, even if they do play early, they do still transfer. So take Marcel Brooks, for instance, who was a part of LSU in 2019. He started to become a big-time player there at the end. And, Bo Pelini came in and he's decided to bolt. And we've seen quite a few people do the same thing, really. People come in 5 stars and they don't last. We saw a linebacker. What is it? How do you pronounce it? Palai Galato. I don't know how to say his last name. He played a lot at USC and he still transferred. AG2 played a lot at LSU. Still wasn't good enough. And you start seeing this a lot. So the thing is, whenever you recruit a Louisiana kid, they want to be there. I'm telling you right now, who would kill for Eric Gilbert's spot right now? Jordan Allen, a 3-star defensive back who is hungry to get LSU to offer him. He would do anything for that slot. He's good friends with Terrence Welsh. He would do anything to join his fellow bootleggers. So who would you rather have? The elite talent or someone that wants to be there? The same thing is true whenever LSU was holding slots for the class of 2020, holding out for players. And then you lose guys that were committed. You lose guys that would have developed, that playing for LSU actually meant something to them. And they go to other schools. It becomes a question that you have to ask. What I would do to rearrange some of what I would do as far as recruiting moving forward, I would, because LSU is in this unique position with the state of Louisiana and the stranglehold that they have on the state, I would hold a premium on Louisiana kids. And the reason why is because slot management is going to be so valuable. Because here's the interesting thing about Georgia is that I believe even after adding AG2 and adding Darian Kendrick, they're still going to have 1 slot remaining. And they're adding a lot of guys that could potentially play right away. Whereas with the recruit, that is not the case. Maybe 2 or 3 out of every freshman class you get has players that are going right away. So that's the thing. We'll see as far as that is concerned. So, and Brody brings up a good point. Don't you think the other guys that play for LSU want guys that are for sure going to be there? So, yeah, as Larry points out here, sometimes those 3 stars turn out to be good. And they don't just turn out to be good, they turn out to be multiple-year pros. Sometimes they turn out to be multiple-year Pro Bowlers. So, yeah, it's not as if getting a lower-ranked Louisiana kid isn't a disqualifier from that player potentially turning into something great. And that is a very important thing to keep in mind because those slots are valuable. So what I would do as far as your recruiting strategy is concerned is recruit those guys, hold a premium on those Louisiana guys, and then if you don't end up getting 4 and 5 stars, at least you know that you have guys that are in state and want to be there. They grew up around people that said, they grew up around people that were LSU fans. The dream for every kid that lives in Louisiana is to go play at LSU. So yeah, it's very interesting. Oh, you got me a punch, baby? Thank you so much. Thank you, baby. Yeah, Kedrick, yeah, it does suck. But if you feel that way, you should be happy he's gone. So we'll see what happens. And you know what, Johnny? Ed Orgeron is too. It's just one thing that we've learned is, for the most part, the 2020 class was a really good learning experience for Ed Orgeron. There's a lot he can learn. And look, what he did after or during that time period was actually really smart. So he looked at Alabama, he looked at Clemson, and he looked at Ohio State and saw that their schools were comprised of players from all around the country. Alabama in particular has legit 4 and 5 stars from all around, and they have a huge national umbrella of talent. And what Ed Orgeron saw was, once the team started winning, and they were winning at that level, they started getting more elite guys. So obviously AG2 is one of those guys. But when you look back at the 2020 class, there are a lot of out-of-state guys that, obviously this was only year 1 for them. A lot of them could be year 3 guys. But even after, the spring, a lot of the 2020 guys aren't starters now. So in year 2, they're not ready to be starters. And a lot of those guys were out-of-state players. Philip Webb, Marcus Dumerville, Jordan Tolles, Antoine Sampa, Josh White. And that's the thing. Now, I actually still like a lot of those players, especially in Philip Webb's case. He has some really good players ahead of him. But, it's interesting that at this point, I'm not sure any of us feel overly confident that they're going to be superstars in year 2. And once again, year 3 is a more likely year. Most players don't become superstars, or at least very good SEC starters, until year 3 of their development anyway. But it is a fascinating thing to keep an eye out for. And the other thing about that 2020 class is that there was a lot of national recruits like a Jermaine Burton and Rakeem Jarrett that were holding up valuable slots, and they decided at the very last second to go elsewhere. And that potentially cost you some other really good kids in that class. So it is a valuable thing to keep in mind moving forward. So, yeah, once you cast a bigger net, you're going after kids that don't want to be at LSU as much as the kids that are from Louisiana. So, yeah, Walter Nolan's one of those 5-star out-of-states. No, I don't want players only from Louisiana. That's not what I'm saying at all. My point is, you should hold, especially knowing that they really want to be there, you should hold those players, in higher regard. But you look back, the 2019 team wouldn't have won a national championship without players from Louisiana. You still have to recruit out of state. You still have to find some good out-of-state players, period. LSU just got some huge news today that a really good offensive tackle who has a Texas A&M lean is going to visit LSU. And I was, when the AG2 news, iPad? When the AG2 news broke, I was actually starting to look into this guy, and his name's Cam. I forgot his last name, and he's a number 100 rated player nationally. And it's kind of crazy that, he's from the state of Texas. LSU's had some success getting offensive linemen from the state of Texas, not so much recently, but yeah, I think you do need to still get guys out of state, particularly on the offensive line. But we'll see. You got Lucas Taylor, you got Marcus Scott, you got some really promising out of state guys, Jadarian Rom. But it is a fascinating, development to look into. And that's true, Kane. You don't know if every kid wants to go to LSU, but you look at some of the 3-star guys that are waiting for the LSU offer, like a Jordan Allen. We'll see. And I'm more so focusing, Kane, on this upcoming class. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. 24 minutes in, and I'm in the jungle juice. What's up, Paris? Did Coach O mishandle this situation? I don't. No, I don't think so. Outside of wanting him back after he committed to Florida, I think I don't know if there was something else behind the scenes that might have happened, but based on what is public knowledge, it doesn't look as if he mishandled this. As we know now, AG2 is a little bit more of a roller coaster than we all initially thought. I don't think anyone could have predicted this. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. So, yeah, I think after the Florida thing and trying to get him back, I think that's what happened. And honestly, I know I don't see eye to eye with everything on Coach O, but the one thing that you can kind of piece together was the same thing we all were talking about on this channel. We did a big film study on Cole Taylor versus AG2, and we saw how much Cole struggled against Ole Miss in Florida. Now, once again, I'm really high on Cole Taylor. I saw him more so as a year 3 guy. And I think Ed Orgeron really wanted AG2 back because, that tight end position is a little bare now, but we'll see. I could see why he wanted him so back. And he said during spring, during an interview with the reporters, a Zoom call with the reporters, he said he was going to work with the tight ends on their blocking. And when AG2 played his final game against Alabama, his blocking was really good. It honestly was. And he started to turn the corner in that aspect. But, you just can't overstretch yourself for anyone. And, in the video we just released, you only have so much time and resources as the head coach of the university. And I don't know how much time Coach O specifically spent on re-recruiting AG2. I do think I do think, though, after the Florida thing, that was, a little, that was shown that it was time to move on. And I do think for some reason, if AG2 does not qualify for Georgia or something falls out, I would stay away. You notice when the Dan Mullen commitment announcement happened, from what I read, Florida was a little off guard by it. So it's interesting. But yeah, Shale says, I think Jack Besh being a Thad Moss. Yeah, they're different players. Thad doesn't have the receiving ceiling that Jack Besh has. Jack Besh is ridiculous. Statistically, he's probably the best of the incoming players. Now, he played with the best quarterbacks out of the incoming players, but still, he's special. He's really good. And it wasn't just St. Thomas More. It was camps. And everywhere this dude was dominating. See, thank you so much, man, for super chat, and I really do appreciate it. And you did the same thing. We won't say it out loud, Johnny, but I do appreciate it. Huh? But yes, Johnny's bringing up the walk-ons here. Yeah, you look at a guy like Pig Cage, a guy that was at Nicholls State, left on scholarship. So essentially, he's paying his own way to enroll at LSU, and he's taking a chance on himself. So we'll see what happens. I obviously like the idea of doing this. This kid's going to come in hungry. He's a Rummel Raider, and what we've seen in the past is a lot of Rummel kids outperform their ranking. And if this works out, this will be the steal of the century. He is all over the place. I've never seen a player tackle someone and pop up so quickly. I mean, Pig Cage plays with a certain style and flair to his game that is very interesting. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. Cheryl, let me give you the t-shirt link. All you got to do, Cheryl, is click this link, pick your size, and you get to pick the topic. How about that? Yeah, Johnny, he's got some high football IQ. We need kids that play with the mentality we'll play anyone, anywhere, at any time. Yeah, and look, at least this is in the rear view, and you can move forward. But before you, and this is why it's important to discuss this, before you just move forward, obviously, it's obviously very important to just to learn from this, to reflect, see what changes, what we're discussing right now. And it's very important to reflect on it, because now this is a friendly reminder that when you host these visits, check to see how they act with one another. I was told of a recruit who shouted at his mother during a visit, and the coach, and I won't say the coach, because this is just something I heard. When the recruit saw when the coach saw the recruit shouted at his mother, he just ended the visit. He said, "No, this isn't for you. I don't want you here." And obviously, there's not always going to be those verbal type of cues, but I would look for that because those things are very important. And remember this, 10 years ago, when there wasn't a limit on how many kids you could sign in a class, you could just sign a kid, and if he doesn't work out, then, it's fine. But when you only have 25 spots, it has a direct impact on someone else that you could potentially sign and you could potentially recruit. And that's the thing. So, yeah. And yes, Leonard, his schooling would definitely get paid. Let's go. Drew with the gotta pay for premium. I love it, Drew. Thank you so much. A very nice Venmo here. And Drew, to get to pick the next topic. Hitstick, this was a great quote. In the words of the late, great Howard Schellenberger, take care of your state first. Absolutely. So, yeah, this has been a fun live chat so far. I'm having a good time. I'm glad to be back in studio. I know you guys did enjoy the mobile live stream from Alabama. It was pretty dope. And I learned that we have an abnormal amount of viewers in the Mobile Fairhope area, which is crazy. I think my channel is intended for Alabamians that don't live in Louisiana to enjoy LSU football. I love it. We got Big Allen here from north of Huntsville. That's dope. So, yeah. And Cheryl, if you have any more questions about the shirt, make sure you hit me up. Now, I want to get into this Manning Passing Academy. And if you guys want to get back to recruiting, feel free to super chat. But it's very interesting. I went to Alabama this weekend, and on the local news, Simone Eli, a local reporter there, she, Tyler, we just started. Just started. Don't pay attention to the time. We are just starting. I was waiting for you, Tyler. Simone Eli did an interview with TJ Finley, and I listened to the interview, and TJ, as he always was, is very poised and excited for the opportunity to compete against Bo Nix. But it was fascinating to see him, of course, in an Auburn shirt. And obviously, we're still waiting in a few days to see if recruits can transfer from SEC school to SEC school and be able to play right away. A lot of people are expecting that to pass. We'll see. But now it is just the Myles and Max show. And I think it was you, Reed, and it's funny, Eric is just joining us. Eric always joins in at the right time. He is a co-president, and Tyler as the real president of the Garrett Nussmeier fan club. I know some of you have been asking about, Garrett starting in year one. And obviously you don't want that to happen. We've done a lot of content on this subject. But the thing is, for me, is you want Garrett Nussmeier just sitting and learning and soaking all of this in. Because if he does struggle in this first season, number one, there's never been an LSU quarterback that started in year one that has turned out to be successful. It's never happened, especially in the modern era. But number two, if he doesn't do well, he's more than likely going to go elsewhere. Okay, so you want him soaking in and learning the game off the bench. And you want to make sure you have that solid number three option, because out of anyone of the three quarterbacks, Garrett is the less likely to transfer. So even if you think at this moment he is the absolute best quarterback for the job, which, right now he is not, it's probably not wise to start him right now. And then you factor in this announcement today that Max and Myles were invited to the Manning Passing Academy. And these two are going to get to compete against some of the best, throwers, in the country. And what it is when you get invited, it's not an academy for them. It's an academy for other high school prep and upcoming quarterbacks. And more so intended to help younger quarterbacks get some attention. And you get instruction from these quarterback coaches. So, Max and Myles is going to be rubbing shoulders with Matt Corral and Sam Howell and all these big quarterbacks from across the country. And I think that's going to be very good for both of them and their future, not only potentially at LSU, but beyond. And I think what's going to be fascinating is all those quarterbacks go through interviews. And I can't wait to hear Max and Myles talk about the process and what they've been working on and how they've dealt with everything surrounding them. And I do think what's going to be interesting is obviously Myles is going to get to be around Peyton and Eli. And of the two quarterbacks, obviously Myles is the most like both of them because he is obviously a pure pocket quarterback. But ironically, neither one of them had unbelievably strong arms, which is obviously the same thing is true for Max and not for Myles. So I think they're both going to learn a lot from this experience, but I do think it's going to help their long-term development. So yeah, I do think of the two, I'm still leaning with Max as QB1. But, I'm starting to waver just a little bit. And I hate that because I like to be decisive when it comes to who I think the quarterback should be. And the more I research, the more data I look at, I'm like, maybe Myles is the guy. Maybe he should be the starter. So we'll see as far as that is concerned. I do think, though, that Max still has a lot to learn as a thrower. So we'll see. And Johnny's also on the Nuss bus. Yeah, Reed, I've heard those Trey Bradford rumors to coach Oklahoma. My goodness gracious, you son of a gun. Obviously, Mr. Farish, I need you to give me your topic that you want to discuss. We haven't gotten to your super chat just yet. Johnny says, I'm also on the Nuss bus. I like that. Where are my Nuss bussers? Do we have anybody that's really on the Nuss bus? Like Johnny? Let's see here. Let's see if I'm missing anything. All right. Yeah, Trey is one of the few. I still think Trey is one of the few Myles Brennan guys on this channel. Achiki, you're on the Nuss bus too? As far as being the starter. Okay, let me throw this out. If you are saying you're on the Nuss bus, and I'm on the Nuss bus too, but I don't believe you should be the starter. And I want to ask this question to Eric, Johnny, and everyone that's been talking about the Nuss bus. Do you actually believe Garrett Nussmeier should start right now? Oh, okay. There you go, Cheeky. But it's okay if you're on the Nuss bus. I was just trying to get some clarification. The Nuss bus. Kane from his burner account. Nuss bussers. LMAO. Better spell that right. Don't want to get demonetized. That is so good. Yeah, man. Yeah, that's deep. That's deep. That is a nutty comment right there, Kane. That is nutty. Yeah, and Leonard, I think that would be good for him. Some cleanup duty. Which kind of goes along with that joke. Yeah, Victor, maybe next year. Maybe. But I'm fine with the Myles, Max, then Garrett train. I'm okay with that. You know, one thing I think is going to be interesting. One coach I think about a lot. All right, and this is going to be a little a sidetrack, but let me know if you want to get back into this. I think about Tom Herman a lot. All right, so Tom Herman could have been the coach at LSU, and hear me out. I'll get back to Myles and Max in just a second, and the Nuss Bussers. That's still so crazy. But okay, so Tom Herman went to Texas, and he could have been the LSU head coach. But the most fascinating thing about Tom Herman's Texas career was that he only had one quarterback. He only had Sam Ehlinger. And to fire a coach, and obviously I do think Sark will be an upgrade. I do think Sark will get that train moving. But to fire a coach when you only ever had one quarterback, and by the way, Sam Ehlinger set a lot of records, and he won games. But sometimes quarterbacks just can't win. For whatever reason, they just don't win games. And I don't like using quarterback wins as a stat. But what's going to be interesting is obviously if Myles Brennan is the starting quarterback next season and he still puts up big stats, let's say he is the starter for UCLA, okay? And let's say he throws for 430 yards and 5 TDs with 1 pick or whatever, and LSU still loses. That is wild. That would be something very wild. Now, the thing was, Sam Ehlinger in some Texas losses, he was just bad. But it's interesting that some quarterbacks who put up big numbers, they just don't win. They just don't win games. And obviously, a 3-game sample for Myles Brennan is just too small. But, sometimes coaches just think simply as far as wins and losses. And I think one thing that will weigh heavy on Ed Orgeron is one quarterback went 1-2, and the other quarterback went 2-0. And obviously, that is an oversimplification of it. But we'll see what happens. There's a lot of these weird outside factors that comes down to this quarterback battle. But if you're basing it just off numbers, Myles Brennan, of course, statistically was the better of the 2 quarterbacks. Esteban, good to see you, man. No, Drew, we do not play Georgia next season outside of course, the SEC championship game. Let's go. Run it back. Alabama, we're coming to T-Town. RTWFU. We're coming. We're coming, Bama. So, yes, we do play Georgia next season. We not only play Georgia next season, we play them in Atlanta in early December. Let's go. If you're not hopping on, just get out. Let's go, Coach O. Let's go. Fire yourself up. If you're not fired up watching this chat, let's go. The fan in me just sometimes just fires up. Just boom, boom. David says, what team do you think can stop Washington and Gilbert? Okay, so that's a good question, David. All right, let's talk about Georgia, because obviously there are some Georgia fans that are obviously watching this now. And, if you are a Georgia fan, welcome. We obviously accept fans from all fan bases. We're not one of those channels that says, F you if you're no, I do like different perspectives. And if you are a Georgia fan, I am interested your thoughts on today. Look, the one thing that can stop him, David, is JT Daniels. Look, JT Daniels was really good against Georgia. He was really good for Georgia last season. However, when you actually crunch some of the numbers, so he didn't play the Florida game. And obviously, after that, he kind of took over and Georgia hit another gear. But here's the thing about JT Daniels. Number one, he's not going to have Pickens. And as great as Georgia thinks AG2 might be, I don't think he's a Pickens types of player, especially if we don't even know if he's going to be eligible. And number two is we don't know how great JT Daniels actually is until we see him as a full-time starter. And what I mean by that is defensive coordinators now have a pretty good sample of film to really study him and figure out some of his weaknesses. And USC, he was obviously playing very early, but he wasn't all that great. And then you had the bowl game against Cincinnati where he was fine. Obviously, Marcus Freeman's defense was really good. I underrated Kyle Trask last season. He blew my mind. He really did. I also underrated Mac Jones to a certain degree. So what we do know is pocket quarterbacks can definitely succeed in the SEC. But I am a little skeptical of Daniels going into next season. And to a certain extent, I'm also skeptical of Matt Corral as well. I don't think, and I know I said this last year and I was wrong, because Trask and Jones did separate themselves from the rest of the pack. I just don't think Corral and Daniels will do that this season. And I know they're the two most popular names at quarterback right now, as far as being the best two in the SEC. I just think that there's a lot of questions regarding both of them. I know accuracy it can be a little erratic for JT Daniels. I know he's considered to be an accurate quarterback, but I saw a very interesting analytics chart saying that it might not be as good as you might think. So yeah, I'm just not as sold on Georgia as a lot of people are going into next season. So yeah. In him to let's see. Sark bombed out at Washington. So let me bring this up as well. How many head coaches are just elite at their first stop? Okay, so obviously, Kirby has been really good, and this is his first big head coaching job. So some head coaches obviously are really successful wherever they go. But, Sark bombing at Washington is, a little understandable, I guess you could say. You could say what happened at USC, but that was obviously off the field related. I think he's had that part of his life shored up. But, I'm high on Sark at Texas. And if you want to go down this rabbit hole, I don't want to because we've done this a few times. But if you do want a super chat, because it is kind of a rabbit hole, from an LSU perspective, you actually do want Texas to be better, like as in the Longhorns. You should be cheering for Texas to do well under Sark. But that's obviously a weird rabbit hole, and I don't want to go down that take. But I really do believe that to be true. But obviously, who said the Sark comment? He said, I'm trying to remember the Sark comment. Let's see. Sark bombed. Okay, Victor. Yeah. If you want me to go down that, feel free to super chat. Let's see. Yeah, I don't get it either, David. And he was a second and 26. Was that what that was it? It wasn't his fault. And by the way, the Georgia dude was not offsides on the block punt. Alabama winning that national championship was total BS. And that should have been Kirby's championship, but it is what it is. Yeah, WME, he is gone. I think. But yeah, it's strange. And it's funny. Look at all the great players LSU has lost before their national championship seasons. And it shows you that no one player makes a program. No one player makes a team. No one player ultimately decides whether or not you're going to win multiple national championships. There are no Tom Brady's. There are no LeBron Jameses in college football. And that's the beauty of it. You got to have a good program. Now, there are great players that will carry a team to a championship, like Joe Burrow and Cam Newton and Reggie Bush or whoever. But no one player makes a team. And if you have to deal with baggage off the field, then that's a problem. And you look at all of LSU's national championship teams, they lost some of the greatest, and I'm not talking about just good, we're talking some of the greatest LSU players in history the years before they won national championships. And those are guys you never had to worry about. Those are guys that showed up and showed out. Those were the Patrick Petersons. Those were the Devin Whites, Brady James. You would think if you ever lost a player of that caliber the year before, it would, decrease your team's performance. But no, it is the exact opposite. It's the exact opposite. You got to have a team, got to have a lot of guys that are bought in. And if you stretch yourself too thin going after a guy that may or may not want to be there, then so be it. Okay. So Esteban, I know you've super chatted a bunch in the back. So and in the past. So I'll touch on this because I think I think I've touched on this in a live stream before, and I've done a whole video on it. So you said it. I get what you're saying because it blocks A&M. It's not A&M that you have to worry about. It's Alabama. Look at what Alabama did in the state of Texas this past season when, there was no real Texas coach to recruit that area. Nick Saban clean. And would those guys want to go to Alabama anyway? Maybe. But when Texas is not power, Alabama and A&M in the past have cleaned up. And even LSU. When Texas wasn't a power in 2017, as you mentioned, Esteban, we got Austin Deculus, we got Kerry Vincent, we got Ed Ingram in that class, and Caleb Von Chason. So obviously when Texas isn't good or when they're transitioning coaches, there's obviously a lot of players to be had. And, we had JoJo Worrell for a while. But Texas being good dents Alabama and A&M more than it would dent us, where our team is mostly comprised of Louisiana guys. But, of course, you still need Texas guys. You go look at the national championship teams, and some really good LSU players, whether it be Matt Flynn or Terrence Tolliver or whoever else, have come from the state of Texas. So, yeah, I get what you're saying, Esteban, but, I still think we just don't need these 5-star linemen going to Bama and A&M every season. Let's see. Carves makes a good hypothetical here. I wonder if COVID never happened. Myles throwing to Chase, Marshall, AG2, and Butte. Wow, we can only imagine. Yeah, it sucks. Myles never had Jamar to throw to. So, yeah. Yeah, that's true. Florida State in particular.
We're going to bed early tonight.
Are you going early night? Mm-hmm. Reed is starting the Jalen Sheed chat, and I am here for it. I like it. I'm here for Jalen Sheed chat.
But you got dinner cooked, so praise be.
Let's see. Victor, is this your first chat? Everyone welcome in Victor. Let's see. Eric, your wife's a UGA fan? Get it together. Ultra. So Ultra is one of these viewers that lived in the Mobile area. So next time, Ultra, I'm in town, we're getting all the Mobilians. You're right about that, Brandon. I'm telling you. Let's see. Good weather fella. What is a good weather fella? Welcome to the chat, good weather fella. Let's see. Once again, I'm rocking the shirt tonight, guys. I'm feeling great. I'm excited to move on with their lives. Focus on people like you. Obviously, you want to look this great. Cliff was rocking his PHL shirt. Let's see. Ugh. Look at that. Boom. Boom. Look at that. Shout out to you, Cliff. Love it, man. Absolutely love it. PHL is in the building. Johnny, I'm going to work on that. At 3X, Leonard, thank you for rocking your shirt. Let's see here. I do want to, I get, it's weird. T, that's an interesting question. I do get a lot of Arch Manning questions as well. I'll touch on a second because I don't. Arch Manning gets the chat all hype, and I don't want this to become an Arch Manning chat because we still have 2 more years to talk about his recruitment. But the clear answer there, T, is you don't want him going to Ole Miss. You do not want him to go to Ole Miss. That is the number one thing. Okay. All right, Jojo. I haven't been able to see the comments because I was just getting started with the live stream, and I understand that there's probably some comments down there. Drojo, give me a Cliff Notes. Actually, I'll look at it real quick. People are being really civil in my comment section about 82, and I even said. Let's see. Who'd you get into it with? Okay, so there's a guy named Scotty Pimpin. This host sounds salty as F. Ain't no NFL crossing this dude off a 2023 draft because chose to transfer. What? If I was an NFL team and I knew how a kid like that transferred, that's what I said in the video. If it doesn't get cleaned up, if he decides to decommit again, then I would stay away. It's just that simple. So, Jojo, I have no idea what you said. But yeah, I don't want to talk too much about Arch Manning, but obviously, the disaster scenario with him going to Alabama. That's obviously what you don't want. That's obviously the number one thing you don't want to happen is him going to an SEC West school, most notably Alabama. Does he go to Texas A&M? Does he go to Auburn? I don't know. Ole Miss, of course, would be better considering they're not in the same class at Alabama. But obviously, you don't want him to go into the SEC West. You don't want him going into the SEC. You obviously would rather him not go to a Clemson or a Texas. So obviously, the best case scenario would be for him to go to, let's say, a Tennessee. Even though they're in the SEC, I don't know if Tennessee is ever going to get to national championship level. But obviously, the best case scenario is him going to LSU. So we'll see. Let's see. Again, a lot of 5-stars are not in the NFL. Yeah. And a lot of them do get drafted. Kane says, I think that guy has a point. Well, my point, he mischaracterized my point. My point was, if I saw that this guy decommitted a bunch, I would be a little worried unless obviously he has 2 years of consistent good teammate activity, then obviously I would draft him. I said in the video, he's got a future in the NFL, but I would think about that. And Bill will draft him in the 6th round. We should have played him at defensive end. Yes. I did. You know what? He does have a few great defensive end clips. We say hi to Cliff says the entire LSU season revolves around if Trevonte Jones can turn around this defense. Yeah, true. Dylan Moses did not get drafted. True. A lot of that was injury related. And I get it. I do get it. Raiders or Browns? Okay, so trade super chats. We stopped talking about AG2. All right, we move on. So I love it, Trey. Thank you. I'm happy to move on. Rain says it's crazy that we took everything that made the Big 12 stand out, high-powered offenses, a big-time QBs. Yeah, I do think we'll go to Drojo's comment next, unless we get another super chat. So here's what we'll do. We'll go to Rain and Cliff's comment here about the defense and Trevonte Jones, and then we'll get to Drojo's talk about Coach O and the 4 freshman wide receivers coming off the bench. Okay, Cheryl, welcome. So let's start with the defense. So yes, and I know we have a lot of new viewers. If you're used to watching this, my simple fix to the LSU defense. And obviously, this is just a macro view. This isn't any X's and O's or anything like that. But the macro fix to the defense. If I was Trevonte Jones, I would look at my defense and say, what are the 2 things that we need to fix? Well, there's one big thing, and then there's one other thing. The first big thing that you need to fix is stopping the explosive plays defensively. I think it was Johnny or someone else brought up about Jay Ward becoming a better leader. I put a picture of Jay Ward in today's video. I love Jay Ward. I love that he fought through injury. And to go what we were saying earlier, he's an out-of-state guy. He was a 3-star recruit that was going to pick Kentucky, and Ed Orgeron convinced him at the last second to come to LSU. And he's turned out to be a really big-time player for LSU, playing through the injuries, had a rough start to the Arkansas game, and ended up winning the game at the end. The kid just keeps his head in the game and just keeps fighting. And he's got a lot of potential, not only at safety, but potentially the nickel. So yeah, you have a lot of interesting players to make your defense better. Now, if you are Trevonte Jones, the number one thing you would tell Jay Ward is to stop explosive plays. That's what I would tell my entire defense. We have to stop the deep passing plays. So it used to be that you built your defense from the front back. But now you need to start your defense with the back first, because the guys in the back of your defense are the ones that are actually going to be defending the pass. So what do we know based on, studies and all of this in recent years? Well, the quarterbacks are better. They're better not only at throwing the football, they're not only more accurate, they're also better at throwing the football quicker, and they don't take sacks. So you really need to have a really well put together secondary that doesn't give up explosive plays. So the first thing, if I was Trevonte Jones, is say, look, whatever we need to do to stop the deep passing plays, we have to. Because according to Bill Connolly, the number one metric that determines whether or not teams win games, what was the stat? 86% of the time, the team that wins the explosive play battle is going to win the game. So prevent explosive plays, you're going to win. And number 2, I want to keep contained in the running game. And that is absolutely huge. Keep and contain versus teams that like to bounce it to the outside. And LSU was not good at that. And their run fits in general were just so bad. So while you weren't stopping deep passing plays, and while you were committing more guys into the box, even when you committed more guys into the box, your run fits were bad. So the first thing is stopping outside runs and keep it contained in the running game. And, that's going to be the very big thing. So it's funny you mentioned Big 12 defenses. I ironically met a Big 12 safety, and I won't say who it was. We were passing conversation, and I met him this weekend in Alabama. And, he was talking about, we were talking about Big 12 football. And, I just think the quarterbacking just got so much better. in the SEC. And not only did the quarterback get better, the coaching got way better. All these offensive wizards joined the conference. Eli Drinkowitz, Lane Kiffin, so on and so on. Mike Leach, Kendall Briles, whoever. So when that happened, all those guys are really good at causing conflict to your safeties. And now Trevonte Jones, as an NFL safeties coach, has to, and I'm sure he's obviously doing this, he has to say, look, we've got to stop the explosive passing plays. We can't give up deep plays. And the one thing about LSU safeties last season is I think that was probably their slowest group of safeties they've ever had. Mo Hampton, Todd Harris, and Jacoby Stevens. But now you're getting faster. You obviously, get Jay Ward back there as one of your starters. You have 3 newcomers who are faster than all the 3 guys that we just mentioned. And then, of course, you have Jordan Tolles. Hopefully he takes that next step. You got Burns coming in as well. So, yeah. That's going to be key. Yeah, stopping the run. Just getting run fits right. That's going to be so key. You win games with the line of scrimmage. Yeah, it's true. And LSU's gap fits weren't good last season. They just weren't. So, yeah. Now, what was the second question I said I'd get to? Oh, yeah, Jojo said, did you see Coach O talk about the 4 freshman wide receivers coming off the bench? So, obviously, there's 5 Neighbors and all those guys. Neighbors, Hilton, Brian Thomas Jr., Jack Bash, and Deion Smith. So, if my personal evaluation of the 5 wide receivers, the way I saw it, just watching their tape, studying what they did in high school, reading different reports, Jack Bash was the lowest rated wide receiver out of the group. Just from my personal eye test, I thought he was the best. I thought he was the best wide receiver commit. But, the more I looked into it, the 2 wide receivers that have the best chance of being great at LSU, when you factor in recruiting ranking and a few other things, would be Chris Hilton and Brian Thomas Jr. Deion Smith is very interesting. He grew up wanting to play at LSU. His coach said it's his dream school. But there's not been an out-of-state wide receiver who has cracked the top 6 in receiving yards for LSU in quite some time. So, yeah, Deion Smith's obviously really good, though. And I do believe, with him being an early enrollee, he'll have the biggest instant impact. But, I'm starting to reevaluate, Jack Bash being the best. The more I read about Chris Hilton, the more I'm starting to buy in. And I understand that there is a little injury concern there, but, if he's fully healthy, the dude is incredible. I think his athletic profile is the best out of any of the wide receivers. And obviously, you have Brian Thomas Jr., he's 6'4". Some people see him as a Terrace Marshall clone. We'll see. And then, of course, you have Malik Neighbors, who's, very fascinating. I'm interested to see, how he fits into this whole dynamic. And maybe he shows up and shows out and he's the best wide receiver out of the bunch. There have been as many LSU NFL wide receivers in the past decade that have gone on to be Pro Bowlers as 4-stars and 5-star recruits as there has been Pro Bowlers that were 3-star recruits. So you have 4 LSU wide receivers in the past decade that have been Pro Bowlers. It was Odell, Jarvis, and then, of course, you have DJ Chark and Justin Jefferson. So, yeah, that showed you that LSU's had a wide variety of wide receivers that were blue chip, top 100 guys, and some wide receivers that weren't that were just guys. and they exceeded all expectations. So, yeah, it's going to be fascinating. Mike Jones and Bug Strong. I love it. I absolutely love it. Let's see. Once again, as Eric pointed out, please hit the thumbs up button. DJ Chark and Jefferson aren't on OBJ and Jarvis level as wide receivers. Yeah, I think it's a little too early because those guys are obviously, a little bit younger than them. But, DJ Chark has had all this success with Gardner Minshew throwing him the ball. And, Justin Jefferson broke essentially every rookie wide receiver record. So, yeah, I mean, those two guys have accomplished a lot with Minshew and Kirk Cousins as their quarterbacks. So, and the funny thing is Jarvis and Odell haven't had elite quarterback play either. That's what makes all four of those guys really special players. Oh, just pure talent-wise? Yeah, well, I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. I do think Chark might be faster than any of them. But I could see your logic there. Let's see. Husker Gray, I just saw this comment. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. And I think about the old school Nebraska fans, the black shirt defense, man. Those are some good days. The black shirts. Tommy Frazier, Eric Crouch. Where are my real Nebraska fans out there? All right, everyone. I want to shout out King Ulysses here. We get to. What's up, man?
Your food's all ready and it's in the microwave when you're ready.
Did you eat already?
No, I'm about to because I'm tired.
You tired?
Yeah. Is that okay?
Can I go away from me?
No, I'm not.
Go on ahead, baby.
Huh?
You can go.
I know I cooked it. I can eat whenever I want to.
Yeah, I know, baby.
Hey, everybody.
I want to say hi to hey. We did tuna steaks with a side of asparagus tonight.
I got my headband on. Sorry.
She got her headband on.
Hey, everybody.
But I'm glad you came in, babe. We got to shout out King Ulysses in Denver.
Nice.
Okay. Esteban wants an autograph search. So we need to go by the local T-shirt store and ask about 3X shirts. And Esteban wants me to autograph his shirt.
Okay.
All right. And we also need to figure out if we can get some 3X shirts.
Okay.
All right. But
Big Al.
So this is the most important thing. I wanted Hay to be here anyway. Everyone, round of applause for King Ulysses in Denver, Colorado. King Ulysses is getting ready to close in on a big house, baby.
Good job.
There you go.
Congratulations.
Congratulations,
Has
King
Biscuit
Ulysses.
been in here?
Biscuit's not been in here.
Okay.
He was in the video earlier. But yes, I need everyone to give a round of applause to King Ulysses for doing something this big. Closing in on a house, King Ulysses, I know how hard you've worked to get to where you are. And you've been missing some live chats because you've been working like crazy. What is this?
Plug them up.
Oh, I thought you were giving me your AirPods.
No.
Look at this. I thought you was. And guess what, guys? Both of the AirPods are in there.
Shut up. I still don't know where that other one went.
Round of applause for King Ulysses. That's big time, man. That's pretty daggum dope, man. But yeah. So, hey, he's going to go eat her tuna steak. And
are you dismissing me?
I'm not dismissing you, but obviously you're so hungry you don't want to wait for me to end the live stream.
Because you take forever. And I'm still catching up on sleep from the weekend.
From the weekend, we didn't have a wild weekend. We had a wild weekend. Wild weekend. Jared, are you watching on the big screen tonight? I know, Tyler. I did. I failed to mention you and our guy Eric. Oh man, Esteban, I am not a celebrity. I'm not pretty enough to be a celebrity. There are some really better looking people that talk about sports in general on the interwebs, and I am not one of them. Jared, tablet on the patio. Send me a photo, Jared. So Jared sent me a photo of him watching on the big screen, and his whole family was watching me on the big screen. I appreciate you, Jared. I really do. But once again, just to wrap this up, Ulysses, congratulations, man. That is so freaking cool that you're doing this. This is a big deal, and yeah, it's a PHL. Who's the PHL commissioner? Oh my goodness. He's got a hot tub, babe. Ooh, King Ulysses. He got a hot Haley in the back said, nice. Huh? And he got a hot tub. My goodness. Next thing you know, Craig Robinson's showing up. That's a deep cut joke for you movie fans. Oh man, that is so cool. Got a hot tub in the deal. I could see King Ulysses' realtor saving that for the last little part of the tour. I could see the realtor just moving back the curtain and saying, you get this, a jacuzzi. Let's go. With mountain views. With mountain views. Oh, man. With mountain views. I love it, man. Oh, Jared, I see this. So you're watching on the patio. Jared's chilling. You got a few cervezas cracked open. I love that, man. That is kind of an underrated comedy now that I think about it. What's up, Simeon? A hot tub with mountain views. God bless. Next thing you know, King Ulysses up in Denver, Colorado, is going to have Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray coming by and saying, "Hey, dude, what a crib! Can and when you move up like that, John Elway's going to be coming over, Jerry Jeudy, Lloyd Cushenberry, Michael Porter Jr. I can't name a member of the Rockies or the Avalanche off the top of my head, but they're going to be coming over. John Denver's going to come over. I don't even know if John Denver lives in Denver, but it would make a lot of sense if he did. Oh, make it. Trey, was that an SNL reference? Aaron Rodgers will come. Is Aaron Rodgers in Denver? Has that deal been done? I don't know if he would be welcome, but Patrick Surtain might come over. And you can ask Pat, why did you not come to LSU? And why did you let Jamar Chase and those guys dominate you? Eddie Murphy, hot tub sketch. Oh, John Denver, is he dead? Well, I'm sorry. Sorry to all the John Denver fans out there. I didn't know. I just know I used to have I found a cassette of his in middle school, which shows you my age maybe, that I found a cassette of John Denver on a recess playground. Not recess, but like a lunch table. or something like that. I don't remember. I don't know why I just thought of John Denver off the top of my head. So Leonard, I'm sorry. I really am. I just lost Leonard. Leonard was a John Denver fan. I'm sorry about that. Eddie Murphy hot tub sketch. Corey says, what kind of production are we getting out of the tight ends this season? That's a good question. So Eric Gilbert had a lot of catches in a short period of time. But yeah, Cole Taylor, as far as, his tight end production, it's going to be fascinating. So he had 6 catches for 36 yards last year. And, in the spring game, he had a chance to make a catch on a 50-50 ball, and he couldn't bring it in. So, yeah, I know I've been critical of Cole Taylor in some videos, but it's just the truth. LSU would also have not pursued AG2 as much if they had Cole Taylor be as good as him, or at least a very good starter. And I think that is part of the reason why the pursuit of AG2 was so rampant. Now, of course, I think Cole Taylor could be really special. And obviously Cole Taylor from Grand Junction, Colorado could be coming to King and Lys's house and knocking on the door and saying, look, tell this dude to quit talking about my blocking. And if Cole Taylor was watching this, I'd say, look, I think he could be really special. You're 6'6". You got a great work ethic. You obviously want to be there. But I do think his development has been thrown off course just a little bit because, his body wasn't ready for SEC play last season. I don't know if it is now. I always thought he was, based on my initial evaluation, year 3, year 4 would be the year that he started to break out. And I do think he could be really good. But yeah, we'll see. NFL LSU says, what can Eric do that Jack can't, as in Jack Besh? Well, we just don't know a lot about Jack Besh as a tight end, but as a receiver, I'm not sure. I mean, I think Jack Besh is really good. I really do. And I understand it's easy to buy his hype because, he was a 3-star that just rose up the ranks and had some just ridiculous games this season. That Catholic High performance was legendary this season. So, yeah. So, also, I would like to be respectful to Trey. Trey is the only person outside of Johnny and Drew to super chat, and Trey politely asked that we don't talk about AG2 all that much. So here's what I'll do, okay? Because I'm kind of tired of it. I kind of am ready to move on, and I just did a video earlier. I will not talk about AG2 unless you super chat it. Okay, if you super chat, I'll go back, obviously. So yeah, I will move on from that. Keep it clean. Yeah, Leonard, the academic issues are also a thing. And look, I've shared this before. No, I'm not. That's something that I was not great at LSU myself. But it was a thing. But we move on. And I think a lot of you that watched the video earlier and watched the opening statement and heard what I had to say about that, we can move on. Reed says Jalen Sheed is going to surprise y'all. You'll get on the field. That young man is physical and nasty and can catch a little bit. Reed, I just don't know a whole lot about Jalen Sheed. I've obviously watched I've obviously watched, just a little bit of his clips that are out there. Obviously, 3-star tight end. You normally look at that as, year 3, year 4 development. And we'll see. But if he comes in, he's going to get an opportunity to play right away. And obviously, Jake Johnson is looking at this situation and he's licking his chops. And that's also going to be a fascinating development when he gets here. Let's see. We say hi to Matt. Brandon says it'll be interesting to see who steps up at that number 2 wide receiver spot. Yeah, I agree with you there. I'm still sticking with my video on this a few weeks back. I'm still sticking with Jure. I'm ride or dying with Jure. Let Jure eat is one of my catchphrases going into next season. Let this man eat. Matt says wide receiver number 3 will be more interesting. You know, I'm rolling with Coy Moore there. I'm rolling with Coy Moore. Look, there's a few things obviously Coy needs to get cleaned up, but this dude works his tail off, and I think most LSU wide receivers, go look historically, most LSU wide receivers take their jump from year 1 to year 2, and this was a guy that got a taste of it and is hungry to make that next jump. So yeah, we'll see what happens. King says, Baby Gates, I love it. Jared with the super chat. Had to wait for the wife to go into super chat. Do mention it out loud in case she's listening. Huh? Jared's wife is like, look, Jared, you got the shirt. Our children need to eat, and you're donating money to this gray-haired, chubby Bruno Mars-looking dude. The stealth. I love it. I freaking love it. Thank you so much, Jared. I appreciate your support. And Jared, next time I am in town, we are definitely going to link up, man. I really do. I hate that our schedules didn't work itself out, but I'm dead serious. I am shocked how many LSU people I saw this weekend on vacation. So, you know, I had it good on vacation. Haley has some really successful people in her distant family, and we got to stay in a really, really nice house that was within walking distance of a really nice swimming pool and an area. And there was a lot of Baton Rougians in the area. And I was shocked by that. I was even more shocked when, and you guys saw this on the live stream on Saturday night, we had a ton of people comment, and I was lucky enough to get to meet one of you guys, and it was cool. And obviously, you know, Jared, next time I'm in town, we're definitely linking up. God, you went snapper fishing? That was crazy. Rain, was that house not insane? So I was lucky to grow up in a really nice house with great parents, and you know, it was wild how well I was raised, and it was so cool to experience, you know, something like that, and to meet such interesting people like I got to stay with. So yeah, I once again, Hayes family's just the best, and they treated me as one of their own, and they were all very interested in learning about you guys. They thought it was like when I went outside to do the live stream, it was so interesting to see how they reacted to that. They were like, wait, at 8:30, and we had to push the live stream back on Saturday night. They said, at 8:30, you're going to talk to a bunch of people. And they're like, do you know them? And I'm like, yeah, kind of. And I told them how important this was to me. I don't like, you know, taking nights off, and they understood it. And they thought it was so cool. And they were tickled that their dog, Teddy, got to be such a big part of the live stream. So yeah, Rain, that house was ridiculous. That's like a Doyle Brunson type of house, right? It's like a King Ulysses type of house. Now, the house didn't have a hot tub. It didn't have mountain views, but it did have a view of a really nice golf course. They live on a golf green. I'm being serious, 10 yards away from a golf green. That is ridiculous. It was so cool to see that. So yeah, I appreciate every one of y'all that was there. That live stream was actually really good. And this one's been really good as well, but it was still cool. Matt, that's a really cool story. If you host a tailgate before a game, I will go and buy you nachos. Nachos? Okay. Let's see. Yeah, Esteban, it was interesting. And that's the thing. You know, every time you guys super chat or send anything, it's, you know, providing me and getting to, you know, live where I live now. So yeah, you know, and then people like you, Esteban, that's been way generous, and Trey, it's really helped out. Really helped out. Drew wants to talk about Corey Kiner. I'm down to talk some Corey Kiner. Let's see. What's good, Josh? Good to see you, man. So yeah. By the way, in the next, I'm trying to think. We will have a huge reveal for our new puppy that we're getting soon, and that will be here in probably the next few weeks. It's going to be really cool. And you know, obviously, our dear beloved Bug will never be replaced, but we are getting a new puppy, so that's going to be fun. Between you and the marinara guy? Okay, I think we're gonna have to privately discuss this. Yeah, you know, maybe Trey Bradford feels that pressure. I know there's been rumors about him in the transfer portal for a few weeks now. Oh, Matt is upping the ante. Oh, Esteban is getting bold here. Esteban says Esteban is a pretty cool name for a dog. Okay. Kind of like Esteban. I do. King says, interesting. King says Sheed is his 3-star sleeper. I hope so. Foster Moreau 2.0. Drew, a new cousin for Tartar. Tartar. I'm surprised you remember old Tar. I like Tartar. But yeah, so the running back discussion. So some of you want to talk about Corey Kiner. Obviously, once again, Venmo, Cash App, Super Chat. We'll go straight to your topic. If I haven't touched on your topic tonight, feel free to do that. Or obviously, you know, PHL shirts. Want me to send you the link to the PHL shirt? I'll be happy to do that again. And by the way, we will do the dog reveal. We're not going to tell you the name or the type of dog until the dog reveal, and I think that will be here in just a few weeks. So you're going to have to wait for that. So let's see. As far as running back is concerned, I do like Kiner and Goodwin. I do think it's interesting, especially if Bradford leaves. You know, the more interesting thing is obviously we don't know how good those guys are going to be. I thought Goodwin of the two looked a little better when it comes to getting handoffs out of shotgun, which is obviously something LSU is going to want to do. And Goodwin, of course, has more top-end speed. But that doesn't necessarily mean you're the better running back. Look, some of the best LSU running, I mean, Jeremy Hill wasn't a burner, nor was, Spencer Ware. You know, you could be a really good running back, or Clyde. You could be a really good running back and not be a burner. And obviously, Corey Kiner certainly fits that mold. You know, I think of the two, I don't know which one I would say I like better. I mean, I like both of them a lot. You know, my bias would say Corey Kiner because I think he followed me on Instagram recently. So shout out to you, Corey. I like his story too. I really do. But we'll see. we'll see what happens. What's going to be more interesting from a recruiting standpoint is the state of Louisiana has a lot of really good running backs in this next cycle. And the thing is, running back, it used to be different at LSU, where when you were a run-based attack, and obviously, you take 2018, for instance, where LSU had the most rushes per game in the Southeastern Conference. They averaged 43 rushes per game. And then in the last 2 seasons, we've had 36 rushes or less per game. And we never really had but one running back that was a superstar, and that, of course, was Clyde. So now that you're running a more shotgun-based offense, you don't need as many running backs. So 2007, for instance, when LSU won an actual championship, they had 4 running backs at 8. I mean, obviously you had Jacob Hester, but you still had Charles, Richard Murphy, and all those guys got fed. And Charles played more than Murphy, but all 4 of those guys played. And that was the offense. It was a run-based attack behind a very underrated offensive line. Whereas now, do you really need to take 2 running backs every cycle? And what's interesting about this 2022 crop is, as many of you know, there are 3 really good running backs in the state of Louisiana. You have Le'Veon Moss, you have Trevonte Citizen, and then you have the Etienne kid. And, he's obviously really good out of Jennings. They play a very interesting offense, which is of note. But all 3 of those guys are D1 level running backs. Is it worth taking all 3 of them? And obviously, the more likely of the 2 or of the 3 would be Moss and Citizen. I think a lot of you would think that if you're an Etienne, you're going to go to Clemson. But yeah, I mean, it's a very fascinating thing to keep in mind, especially knowing that TDP and Emery still have 2 years of, well, technically 3 years of eligibility remaining. Yeah, King Ulysses, Kiner's just he's really, really, really polished at this point. And you could just see it. You do factor in this as well. Goodwin, of the 2 of them, played at a higher level of competition. I believe Hewitt Trustville is 7A. I think that's the highest level in Alabama. And I haven't looked up Kiner necessarily, but just based on what I saw on their huddles, that it looks as if Goodwin was going up against better teams. But they're both fantastic. Teddy, well, I know you guys are missing Teddy. It was good to have a dog on the live stream. Teddy was the first dog since Bug. I'd be on the live stream. But yeah, King, I agree with that. And also Goodwin had the injury his junior season. But yeah, both of them are really good football players. I like both of them a lot. Was it very weak competition? Well, yeah, Tyler. Wow. Okay. Thank you. We'll go to Tyler's comment. All right. Dang, Tyler, this is a long question. Okay, I'm happy to I'm happy to discuss this. Okay. Let me read your comment in full, Tyler. And I will give and Tyler, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let some other people brew in, because this is a very subjective question. And I also like that this question came a little bit later, because it is a little outside the box. And I like outside the box questions. A lot of you come to this channel to get a different type of viewpoint. I appreciate that. So Tyler says, most underrated LSU players since the 2000s and the most overrated LSU player since the 2000s. Okay. So Tyler, and okay, let's start with this. Tyler says his most underrated player since the 2000s is Zach Mettenberger. Okay. So what I'll do, and Tyler, what I want you to do, Tyler, and I know it could be kind of tough if you're watching this mobily or if you watch this on a computer or whatever. Tyler, in the comment section, please, if you can, give me your rationale of why Zach Mettenberger is underrated. And what I want everyone in the chat to do is to give me your most underrated player since the 2000s. So let's actually tighten this, Tyler. Let's make this a little bit easier since both of the guys you have listed here are since 2010. The most underrated LSU players since 2010. So that gives us a decade of sample. All right. So everyone in the comment section, I know you're thinking about it right now. Who is your most underrated player since 2010? What's up, Josh? Oh, Rain, that's a good one right there. That's a really good one, Rain. I think underrated. I think underrated constitutes. Okay, so obviously, Joe Burrow properly rated. I think there is a consensus amongst the national media and local fans that he is one of the best college football players of all time. So he's not underrated. I think someone that it could be underrated on the 2019 team. Okay, yeah, I got a few for you. Okay. Drew, that's a really good one. That's a really good one. Ron Brooks is very underrated. Cliff notes on LB from Pineville, Louisiana. Okay, we'll get back into recruiting really quickly, but Tyler did super chat this question. Read it, underrated since 2010. Johnny says Bowman. Which Bowman? Bowman since 2010. Etling and Brady's offense. Okay. Drew, I really like Ron Brooks. So for those that don't remember, Ron Brooks was the other nickel corner. So in 2011, LSU actually played with 2 nickel corners, and they played a lot with 6 defensive backs. And when they played with 6 defensive backs, the 6th defensive back would be Ron Brooks. Now, full disclosure, I want to say this. If I have a prior relationship with the player, I always let that be known. I was friends with Ron Brooks in college, and he was just a very interesting guy. I just always enjoyed having great conversations with him because we lived in the same apartment complex. And Ron Brooks was really good. He was really freaking good. And you go back to 2011, LSU versus Auburn. Tyrann Mathieu got suspended. Who stepped up in that game? Ron Brooks had a pick 6 in that game. And you look at what he did on kickoff team. You look at what he did as a special teamer. You look at his success in the NFL. Ron Brooks is a very good pick. War number 13, and he wasn't loud. He wasn't a look at me guy. I really like that pick. He is truly underrated. I think Dante Jackson is also underrated. You factor in, because like Ron Brooks, whenever you think about the best defensive backs at LSU, you never mention Dante Jackson, but he would be probably the best defensive back at probably half the SEC schools in the past 5 years. Dante Jackson played all the positions in the LSU secondary. He was good at safety. He was good at nickel corner, but obviously, he was mostly a traditional corner. So yeah, Dante Jackson, an excellent pick, very underrated. Donnie Alexander, that's a good pick. Very, very underrated. He was solid. Das and LB, we'll get to some recruiting in a second. So Das says Michael Brockers. Yeah, I could see that. So let's go back to Tyler saying for Zach Mettenberger, all the physical tools, accurate, absolute cannon of an arm, stuck in an offense that was stuck in the 90s, put him on the 2019 team, and he goes number 1 overall. Maybe, I think the one thing about him on the 2019 team is, he can't run. He has zero mobility. And and Tyler, we've discussed this before on the chat. Joe Burrow's mobility is what really put LSU over the top, but his numbers would have been phenomenal in 2019. And LSU probably still wins most of their games, if not all of them, with Zach Mettenberger at quarterback. So, yeah, you are right. He was hamstrung by the offense. They never developed a slot receiver. So Kadron Boone had 20-plus catches in 2012, and then in 2013, he had less than 10. And I don't know how Les Miles thought it was a good idea to not have a slot receiver and, just run Jeremy Hill into the ground when you had Odell and Jarvis opening up so many gaps in the passing game. But that's Les Miles for you. So, yeah, he was also hamstrung by Les Miles. So that is Zach Mettenberger is obviously underrated. I agree with that. Cheryl says Stephen Ridley. I agree with that, especially considering all the game-winning plays that he made. He had the game-winning touchdown in that crazy game against Ole Miss against Jeremiah Masoli. He had probably a very underrated run against Tennessee. So Stephen Ridley, the 2010 debacle, a lot of you remember that. The funny thing about that is the Tennessee 2010 game, we only remember the 13 guys on the field play, and we only remember T-Bob snap, which is rightfully so. Those were the two most chaotic things. But to me, just as chaotic was Stephen Ridley's game-winning run. So if you go back and actually look at the game-winning run, I talked to Joseph Barksdale after the game about this, and Barksdale broke it down for me. If you look at the left side of the offensive line on Stephen Ridley's game-winning run against Tennessee, they did not fire off the football. They did not hear the snap count. It was so chaotic, and also because the play was at the 1-yard line, you as an offensive lineman don't want to have a false start penalty. So they did not fire off the ball until late. So Nick Revitz, who was a walk-on linebacker for Tennessee, broke through the line of scrimmage and would have tackled Stephen Ridley behind the line of scrimmage if that play if that play would have been made, we would have lost the game. So Stephen Ridley really stepped up in that moment. And I know it's just such a random thing. As you guys know, I don't think about anything else other than LSU football. That was just such a crazy run. So Stephen Ridley, I agree with that. Demetrius Byrd, yeah, I'm fine with that. Sam Montgomery, pretty solid. But Byrd, yes, obviously very underrated. Markevius Mingo, I thought he was properly rated. In a way, he was probably a little overrated, if we're to be honest. Montgomery was the more productive end. Mingo was a top 10 pick. And, he was the first player to be drafted in the top 10 in NFL history to play his first 6 seasons with 6 different teams. So obviously he's a very useful athlete and so on and so forth. Duke Riley is very underrated. I do agree with that, especially considering the success he's had at the NFL, and we never talk about it. Tre'Davious White, yes, his college career was definitely underrated. Steltz, yes, Craig Steltz, underrated. I think that's fair. Overrated, we'll get to that in a second. But LB from Pineville. So, LB, the first thing I want to talk about with your generous super chat here, LB, is I love Pineville. I really do. I love whenever you drive into Pineville. So if you're driving on the interstate to Pineville, you see Louisiana College's football stadium to the right, okay? So, and we'll get to overrated in a second, but LB does drop the biggest super chat of the night on the super chat. And yes, let's see a few more underrateds before we get into this. Tyson Jackson, underrated or overrated? Probably a little bit more the former instead of the latter there. Keelan Williams, underrated. I'm fine with that. Dwayne Thomas was pretty solid, especially considering, he's a Tiger through and through. He's still on the coaching staff. And let me send in a Venmo here. Okay. So, yeah, LB wants to talk recruiting. We'll go straight to it. So, lots of visits today. Open visits after being shut down for 13, 14 months. Who made it to campus today? Some LA kids. Citizen was there. So, LB, let's start with Trevonte Citizen. Very interesting prospect. You know what, LB? I started watching Trevonte Citizen and Le'Veon Moss's tape. I think whenever you talk about the 2022 class, and we touched on this right before you came on, LB. Let me know what you think about this, LB, because you did mention Citizen in particular. I want you guys' thought on this for those that have kept up with 2022 recruiting. Which of the three running backs do you like the best? Citizen, Etienne, and Moss. Those seem to be the big three. I know there's some other really interesting prospects. And I promise you, Tyler, we'll get to overrated in a second. I want you guys to be thinking about overrated LSU players. But I think of the three just based on what I've seen so far. I do like Citizen. He's got a really good bounce to his running that I like a lot. The interesting thing about Trevonte Citizen is last season he was the backup running back on his team. And I don't remember their record when I was doing the research on it. What's very interesting about Le'Veon Moss is Estruma High School really struggled last season. So he's having to carry a big team, and they're not winning. So, obviously, Le'Veon Moss is hungry to get to a program like LSU to be surrounded by, obviously some better talent. I was really impressed with Moss, so he's obviously a ridiculously good athlete. But just based on a basic thing, I don't think that there's necessarily a gap between Moss and Citizen. But we'll obviously see what happens in both of their recruitment. I really do like Citizen a lot. I really do. So yeah, I think for me, LB, and let me know what you think, LB, because this is your super chat. I do think LSU needs to contemplate if taking two running backs or taking even. I think they should take no more than two running backs in this cycle. Obviously, I think they're just going to focus in on Louisiana running backs this time because they're obviously set at the position as far as the future is concerned. They have two sophomores and two incoming freshmen, and obviously Emery and Price are juniors, but they're technically sophomores. I don't know. I don't know what the situation is, how long they would stay, but they still do have 3 years of eligibility left. But for me, LB, I think Moss and Citizen would be smart to just focus in on those two. I wouldn't really entertain any out-of-state running backs because you are so set with that. So obviously, that seems to be the focus. Now, as far as the other guys that visited today, obviously, one of the biggest names that visited LSU today was Quincy Wiggins. Obviously, Quincy Wiggins is a ridiculous defensive end out of Madison Prep Academy. Obviously, that's the high school Major Burns went to. Madison Prep was really good. They won the state championship. And look, Quincy Wiggins, he really stands out. He's a guy that one thing that was very interesting about Quincy Wiggins was they did stem him to defensive tackle quite a bit, which is really good considering, you want scheme versatile type of guys. And he was equally disruptive when he stemmed inside as a 3-tech or a 4-eye. He's really good. And, you look at Wiggins and you look at Jamon Tapp, man, they're both really good. Obviously, Tapp played at Ascension High School in Donaldsonville, East Ascension, I believe, which obviously isn't a ridiculously high level of competition, but Tapp has got some dip in his game. Plays a pretty good pad level. Can get a little high sometimes with this pad level, but that's going to happen when you're so much more athletic than everyone and you don't have to fire off as low. Man, he's got a motor. And both of them seem to have pretty good work ethics. They both seem very interested in going to LSU. I think Quincy Wiggins, just based on the little bit of intel I've done, is a little bit more on fire about going to LSU, but I would be shocked if both of them did not commit. What's very fascinating, though, is I do think LSU is in an interesting position with their defensive end depth. And I don't think Carver's is still in here, but he talks about Philip Webb a lot in here. And then you look at Landon Jackson. If you're a recruiting guy, you know who Landon Jackson is. But I'm telling you, the amount of messages I get from just people around the state that tell me that Savion Jones is going to light the freaking world on fire, it makes me think, okay, maybe I'm wrong. Because we were talking about out-of-state recruits. I think Bryce Langston's special. I think Landon Jackson is like Quincy Wiggins, a guy that made a lot of plays when they shifted him inside. But I'm telling you, I get a lot of messages about Savion Jones. I really do. So LB, obviously, a lot of visitors there. The guy's name is in the title, Jacoby Mathews. I'm starting to think he's the best player in this 2022 crop. The more you read into it, the more you know about this kid. He's just special in every way imaginable. This kid puts in the work. You saw the difference in his high school team last season. TJ Finley's final season at Ponchatoula, they went 6-5. They put Jacoby Mathews at quarterback. They go 7-2 this past season. And that's more of a compliment to Jacoby than it is, a shot at TJ. It's not a shot at TJ. But it's more so me pointing out how freaking good Jacoby Mathews is at this sport. I value guys that can dominate at different positions. That lets me know that you're an athlete. So we'll see. Oh, you think Citizen can play some linebacker? Let's see. And we'll get back to the overrated thing. I do want to finish out LB Super Chat. Let's see. LB also, so Jacoby is special. He's really good. And I think he's a year one guy, even though, it's kind of a stretch to say that someone's going to be a year one impact player on defense when they play a lot of offense in high school. It makes that transition a little bit tougher. But I mean, Jacoby's an animal. He is an animal. We got some Shaz Preston chat. I like it. I like Shaz a lot. I do think, I watch him and I watch Aaron Anderson, and I don't. They're completely different players, but good. I mean, Aaron Anderson can flat out ball, and I'm to the point where I'm getting close to making him a number one wide receiver in this crop. And I know there's some people that'll mention DeColdis Crawford and they'll mention AJ Johnson. But out of the Louisiana, I mean, Aaron Anderson pops off every time I watch him. I learn something new about his game every time. And he's got some real bounce to his game. Whenever you watch him, you're just like, okay, it seems as if he's playing at a different speed than everyone else. Shaz is also really good. I mean, obviously, St. James is a great program, and he's a top 100 receiver, and the kid's got a big smile. Based on everything I've read, he's got a big heart and a big work ethic. It's interesting. Does he want to go to a school in LSU where there's all these wide receivers? And it could just be that, the playing time. If I was Shaz Preston, even if I was the most diehard LSU fan, and I am, this goes back to what Kane said earlier. We don't know how much every recruit likes LSU. There's some guys that just don't want to go to LSU. They want to go out of state. And look, I'm one of those guys. I grew up in Arkansas, and obviously I wanted to go back home. But, there is a reason why, I left LSU to go in the middle of my education to go live in Washington, D.C. and take a job there. Sometimes you want a change of scenery. Sometimes, the dream school for you might be LSU, but you want to just, get away. You want to go somewhere else. And I could understand if Shaz Preston looks at a crowded wide receiver room and says, I want to go elsewhere. But I do think he's high priority. I do. We've shared the stat plenty of times. There have been 17 wide receivers that had top 100 ratings in the 247 composite. 12 of them have gone to the NFL. 12 of them. So 2 out of every 3 top 100 Louisiana wide receivers go to the NFL. And the last 7 top 100 wide receivers LSU has brought in, they've all gone to the NFL. Even the ones that transferred away. Even the Trey Quinns and the Tyron Johnsons that transferred away still made it to the league. Okay? And Malachi Dupree, of course, never played a game, but he was drafted. And he had 2 40-catch seasons at LSU. And I know someone mentioned overrated, underrated. Malachi Dupree was, in a way, he's viewed as a guy that didn't live up to expectations. He was fine. In a Les Miles offense, 2 40-catch seasons is actually pretty good, especially considering his quarterback play. Now, LB, you dropped another super chat here. So we will keep the recruiting content going. Okay, so you posted this earlier. Number 1 DT Walter Nolan played with OG Hill and his cousin Sheed at Olive Branch, Mississippi. Very interesting. Has visits scheduled in July and for a game during the season. Let's talk some recruiting. Okay. Okay. Walter Nolan. So based on what I've done, or based on what I've looked at, Walter Nolan, the first thing is, how about love you? I would say night to hey. She said night, and she also said, Carter, you better work harder. You better get more super chats. And she told me she was going to break up with me if I didn't get a King Ulysses type of house with the mountain view and a hot tub and a jacuzzi. Okay, so here we go. Walter Nolan. So the first thing you need to discuss, Rain, love you. What is that, Carter? Rain, is it bad for a girlfriend to say that she loves me? It makes me feel warm inside, Rain. Cliff, I know you love recruiting. So let's dive deep into some Walter Nolan chat. And LB, thank you for these really generous super chats. So first thing, let's talk about the defensive tackle room right now at LSU. It's pretty good. And it's not just good, it's young. So Jaquelin Roy has at least 2 more seasons. I think he's really good. I think he's 2 more years and then he's gone. Even if he's not spectacular his junior season, I still think he's going to the NFL. Let's see. Joseph Evans is also a sophomore. He will be a 3rd-year player, so he can go to the NFL, but you still could get 2 more seasons out of him. Potentially 3 if you're really going deep. Then you still have Jacoby Guillory, who out of Alexandria seems pretty bought into LSU. I know his dad watches our channel. Had a good spring game. Now, overall had a good spring game. And then we had that Mason Smith guy who's supposed to be special. So the interior defensive line looks pretty set. Okay. Glenn Logan's going to be gone. So Glenn Logan will be gone. And obviously Neil Farrell will be gone. But outside of that, LSU looks pretty set at defensive tackle for the future. Now, how many defensive tackles do you need for your rotation to be set? Well, you need 4. All right. If you're going to play a 4-3, you need 4. But if you want to be a little bit more scheme versatile, and if you want to down the road play some 3-man front, you're obviously going to need more than that. Okay. So I think right now the interior defensive line looks pretty good. If you know you're going to have Jaquelin Roy for 2 more seasons, if you know Joseph Evans could give you 2 more seasons, if you know Mason Smith is live at least 2 more seasons after this year, and you still have Jacoby and Guillory. Eric Taylor, even though he lined up more defensive end during the spring game, he also can play some defensive tackle for you. You can also always find a defensive tackle in the transfer portal. And on top of that, you have, obviously, Tyjee Hill coming out of Edna Carr, Sean Washington out of New Orleans, who was committed and then decommitted. He's still in the atmosphere. So as far as Walter Nolan, his recruitment is concerned, yes, he's the number 1 DT in the country. Yes, he's a consensus top 10 player on basically every board. But I don't think, as far as out-of-state 5-stars are concerned, I don't think he's as important of a target as Kelvin Banks, a 5-star offensive tackle with some Louisiana ties out of Texas. And also, if you get Kelvin Banks could potentially go to Texas A&M or Alabama. You're also taking a player away from that. I know Walter Nolan is going to have a lot of crystal balls going to Tennessee. Tennessee just picked up, I believe, Auburn's defensive line coach, who's, Auburn's defensive line coach has produced a lot of guys into the NFL. So yeah, Walter Nolan, staying in the Knoxville area is going to be very interesting. So yeah, as far as his recruitment is concerned, LB, he is going to make an LSU visit. Obviously, Ed Orgeron. I don't think there's any head coach in the country that loves a defensive tackle position more than Walter Nolan. So we'll see how that recruitment goes. He's obviously a really special player. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Yeah, so Tyjee Hill, the defensive tackle out of Carr. And then, of course, you got Shamar Stewart. And, we were mentioning about defensive line depth. We didn't even mention Bryce Langston. If everything gets squared away here, you're getting a guy that has the thickness and athleticism to play both end and tackle. Yeah. Langston. Rain, I do think he'll be an end, but I could see him playing some tackle. And Lawrence says he's going to be an end. So I like it. Lots of good recruiting talk here. LB, keep them coming, man. It's still your super chat. LB, keep them coming. I'm more than happy to talk recruiting. It's good to already have 3 5-stars committed and locked in. Yeah, Rain, in our third down passing situations. Yeah. But you also got to remember this, Rain. On the third down passing situations, you're going to have a lot of defensive ends coming in to rush in third down packages, like a Landon Jackson or Savion Jones. So, yeah. Jock, I love this question, man. But let me finish out LB here. We need Stewart, Banks, Nolan, and Harris from out of state. Bama signed 7 5-stars. BS to Nolan, not a priority. No. I never said he wasn't a priority. I just think if you don't get, my point was, I just think if you don't get him, you're going to be more fine than if you whiff on all the 5-star out-of-state offensive linemen, which obviously changes a lot for LSU. So, yeah, don't think I don't think Walter Nolan's not a priority. Obviously, I'm excited that he's visiting and considering LSU. No, Tyler, we've not done the overrated yet because LB is dropping these 20s, baby, dropping these stacks. I love it. So yeah, LB, any more recruits? Let's see. So yeah, LB, if I was to rank the players you have listed here as far as importance, I would put Kelvin Banks and Denver Harris a little bit higher up, simply because those are bigger positions of need. But that doesn't mean that they're any worse than Shamar Stewart and obviously Nolan. But I am super high on Walter Nolan. He's obviously special. Make it rain on me, LB. There you go. Just keep throwing them out there. But, and I'm not just saying that because you super chatted, but I do think Walter Nolan's a really special player. I'm just saying that, even Walter Nolan would agree that LSU's defensive tackle room is loaded. And, you factor that in if you're a recruit. Reed is thinking Denver Harris will commit. I like that, man. I do. Cliff says he's a VP of the Bryce Langston fan club. I'm all about that Bryce Langston fan club, baby. I love it. So, Jacques, I'll get to the LBs to watch in recruiting. LB got more money. So linebackers 2022 and 2023. Yeah, Nolan and Stewart for 3 years. That is true. Especially the Shamar Stewart thing. I remember LB reading a year ago that Stewart was really thinking about LSU, which is pretty cool. Let's see. Jacques says 2022 and 2023. So Louisiana is obviously better with 2023 linebackers in the state. Tackett Curtis out of Manny and the Osbury out of U High. So yeah, I think obviously a linebacker for 2023 as far as Louisiana guys are concerned, you're in better shape. Obviously 2022. You got Jay Gilmore out of Amite, who is a baller. I really like him a lot. Very versatile linebacker. But obviously LSU is going after the crown jewel of 2022, which is the 5-star Harold Perkins. And I think LSU needs to pursue that pretty heavily. You talk about position of need. Linebacker could get really bare after this season. So, yeah. I think they should go after Harold Perkins really hard. I know he has some New Orleans ties. I know a lot of people are expecting Texas A&M to pick this one up, but we'll see. I know Harold Perkins has been working out some in New Orleans. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Now, LB's doing just fine. Yeah, how do you think they would use Harold? Whenever you get a 5-star linebacker, you just put him on the field and what happens. It's kind of what happened with LB. Here you go. And by the way, everyone welcome LB from Pineville. This is, really helped out our super chat tonight. Round of applause for LB from Pineville. LB, if you send me an email next time I'm in Pineville, I'll come say hi, man. I drive through whenever I go to Baton Rouge. Michael, you want to talk Pelicans. So, Michael, here's the thing. You did super chat, and I do say 2 hours in, I will talk about whatever you super chat. So I will get to the Pelicans, okay? But LB still holds the floor here. Here with a bunch of good recruiting talk here. So, Michael, I promise you I'll get to the Pelicans. I promise you, Tyler, I will give you an overrated LSU player in just a second. But here you go, LB. Boom. That is a shirt. So, everyone, obviously, round of applause for LB in the chat. I need some clap emojis for LB, some love. Because obviously, I don't know why you needed to include that second part. I don't know why you included the second part. If you were, I'd obviously still love you the same. I do have a lot of I was just a little shocked. You never know these days. Oh, well, you wouldn't have to worry about if I was that. I don't understand why people think queer people just hit on all kinds of guys. That's not what they do. And it is Pride Month, Rain, and we do have members of the LGBTQ community that do watch our content. So here's what I'll do, LB. Okay. Obviously, I accept everybody that watches this channel. I do appreciate your super chats, but you know, we're rainbow friendly here. So I I understand. So it's look, LB, you don't. It's fine. I don't understand why like gays don't just want to make out with every guy that they see or girl or whatever. That's not what they do. But LB, look, I'm gonna let it slide tonight. But obviously, even if I was gay or queer, I don't think I would want to make out with any of you. But anyway, I did not expect that at all. But anyway, we move along. Blush it. I'm not blush it. I'm just blown away that 2 hours and 20 minutes into this, I got that. So yes, LB, you don't ever have to announce to anyone that you're not gay. Savion Smith, the most overrated at LSU? Yeah. So we'll get to the overrated thing. Thank you so much, LB, for donating. Jacob says, anyway. Let's see. It's Pineville for you. AG2 is the most overrated. You do when you invite a guy you know. Oh. Let's see. Let me see. I'll answer this Pelicans question really quickly. Do you think the Pels trade this year's the 10th pick and make a treasure chest bigger for a player like Beal or keep it? Okay, so let's see. I don't know. I don't know what they would do with the 10th pick. I do think this, and this is how I honestly feel about the Pelicans situation as of right now. I do think they should be very worried about Zion's future, and I do think the number 10 pick is not going to be all that valuable to them in the future, because the likelihood that you're going to get a superstar there is very little. Now, how would you package someone together to convince a free agent to come to New Orleans? I don't know. New Orleans has never really been a free agent destination, Michael. But what we do have to understand is it's kind of like the same way you got to view Cleveland. Cleveland has a lot of really good players, but they don't have a superstar. So they have like Colin Sexton and all these different guys. But Cleveland also knows that they're never going to get a superstar to Cleveland. So, for me, I just don't know what the Pelicans would actually do to get a superstar to New Orleans. Now, would Bradley Beal be interested from going from Washington to New Orleans to join up Zion Williamson? Not so sure. I don't think necessarily someone like that would want to join the New Orleans franchise. So yeah. So we'll see. I wish there was a way to trade beyond. Yeah, I don't know. Let's see. We say out of Blaine. We say out of Chewy. What's up, Chewy? Let's see here. Did they do the draft lottery tonight? I don't know. Steven, that's a good question. What recruits do you think could pop in June? Obviously, Emery Jones is a guy I've been following for a long time. I do think Emery Jones is special. I think he's obviously a 4-star offensive lineman out of Catholic High in Baton Rouge, and we'll see. Can he step in right away and help out? I don't know, but I don't necessarily think you get an offensive line recruit and think they're going to be ready to play right off the jump. So yeah, I think Emery Jones is really good. I do. You watch his tape, he moves people and he likes to finish people. He's really good at getting to the second level. So yeah, high football IQ, good football program. Match him up with Bo Borderline in this class, and obviously, the young man from Neville who could just flat out play Will Campbell. I think that'd be great. I think that'll be a great fit. That's true, Reed. But can the Pelicans hit on as many picks as the Warriors? You know what's funny, Reed, is you look at the Warriors, and they obviously got lucky with Curry, Thompson, and Green drafting them where they were, and all three of them far exceeding. I think all three of them far exceeding their draft position is crazy. It's also crazy that they drafted guys like Festus Ezeli, and it was just a good player. But I look at the Warriors, and then they selected James Wiseman over LaMelo Ball, and I was like, really? Why? Why do that? And it obviously looks bad in retrospect. But yeah, drafting is hard. Drafting is random. It's rare that the Pelicans, have a slam dunk number one pick. They both got lucky in the 2 years that they won the lottery. They have slam dunk number one picks. Both of them have obviously lived up to the hype thus far in their careers, which is rare for number one picks. They oftentimes don't. Of course, you got your Tim Duncans and Akeem Olajuwons, but then also you have your Anthony Bennett's and so on and so on. So, we'll see. Obviously, you need BI to take that next step. That's going to be the first thing. And then the second thing is obviously, they just had such bad lineups. They had a lot of archaic players like Steven Adams, who's a big who can't shoot. And then they had Eric Bledsoe, who can't shoot. So, yeah. You think it's great for Deion and Jackson State? Yeah. I'm all about HBCU football, man. Jacob says, did you see Landon Jackson's younger brother Lance, 6'5", 240 in the 8th grade? Jacob, I did not know about this at all. I know nothing about this. That is wild. I didn't even know that was I didn't even know he had a younger brother. Yeah, Landon Jackson, very interesting. It sucks that he didn't get to dress out during spring ball because he was still injured. He did what someone let me see. Oh, Jacob, you just sent it to me. Thank you. I appreciate it. Let me see. Okay, let me see. That's an 8th grader? That can't be an 8th grade kid. You believe that? Let's go. Huh? He's huge. Oh, man. Huh? Ah, yes. That was you, Jacob? You sent me that? Yeah, it was you. That's wild. That is so freaking wild. Jacob, you're from Oakdale? Where's Oakdale? I really don't know, Jacob. I'm interested. Jacob, that's funny. Deion Smith. I like that, man. I like that. I like those Deion Smith vibes. We are a Deion Smith, pro Deion Smith channel. Mm. Jacob, I'm still waiting to know where Oakdale. "40 minutes south of Alexandria." That's interesting. So is it like off the interstate? I stopped at a freaking great pilot south of Alexandria recently. Northwest of Lafayette? Very interesting. Steven, that's a good question. I'm gonna go with Deion since he was an early enrollee. So there we go. I am starting to get a little hungry because Haley did make a new form of tuna steak tonight. Steven, you can't just drop that. Oakdale sucks. Come on, Steven. Oakdale. That sounds like Oakdale's a good time to me. Close to the Kinder Casino? So Oakdale can't be bad if it's close to a casino, right? That's cool, Jacob. You still living there, man? Let's see. Oakdale slander. Oakdale. It just doesn't even sound like a Louisiana town. I'm not from. Cheryl says them boys are crazy in Oakdale. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we're about to wrap this thing up. If you guys have any more super chats, Venmos, Cash Apps, or anything like that, feel free to send them in, and I'll hang out obviously for a little bit more. Lewis, what's good, man? Our resident truck driver. What's good, man? Well, actually, no, not you. I think that's Lewis Malhoot, not Lewis Arnold. We have two Lewises that watch. But welcome, Lewis, to the chat. Whether or not you drive trucks, I appreciate your support. If not, we'll go ahead and wrap this thing on up. So go on ahead, fire any LSU questions you have in the chat right now. If not, we're going to go ahead and end this thing. Tomorrow we'll have a really fun recruiting video. Bacon strips. Always the bacon strips. Steven, that Oakdale slander. Pine Prairie. All right, well, we're going to wrap this thing on up. Thank you guys so much for being a part of this live stream. Tomorrow, we should have a recruiting video tomorrow. I think I found the most underrated LSU recruit for the class of 2022. And that should be the video, barring a breaking news story tomorrow. Jack, sorry, we do have to sign this thing on off. It is Power Hour LSU. Boom! Ba, ba, ba.